provide better leadership. The FDC party has embarked on a succession process to have founder President Dr. Kiiza Besigye replaced. FDC stalwarts, retired Major General Mugisha Muntu, opposition leader in Parliament Nathan Nandala Mafavi, and legislator Geoffrey Ekanya are tussling it out ahead of the final vote in December. The three are founder members of the party, but there is concern that the next leader may face more challenges among them to try and replicate the charisma, zeal, and popularity that the outgoing president commands. There are reports that FDC members are divided on the choice, but many say they are looking out for a candidate who will build the party beyond the urban and peri-urban areas, on top of dealing with divisive issues that have cropped up recently. Many people are also wondering if Dr. Besigye is considering retirement from the political scene, just as he has on several occasions advised President Museveni to do. Some people have actually suggested that Uganda will have cleaner politics if both leaders retire at the same time. FDC has indicated that it will spend about 700 million Uganda shillings on the exercise. And now people are suggesting that this money was generated from Western governments through the walk-to-work protests, an activity that was seen as a money-minting venture for FDC. While the FDC is moving towards replacing Dr. Besigye, a section of NRM MPs today launched a campaign to launch the fifth term for President Museveni, whether that will take him to 35 years in power, stressing that he's the best captain to lead the NRM squad in the 2016 polls. Recently, the president shuffled his cabinet, introducing the new position of minister in charge of political mobilization. A development, people say, points to the fact that he's still around even after the current term. FDC was not impressed by this reshuffle, with Dr. Besigye saying cabinet has become irrelevant, a statement that drew ire from some government ministers. So tonight we'll look at the ongoing democratization process in the FDC, its likely impact on the party, and what challenges the next leader will have to grapple with. We'll also look at the implications on the other parties with whom FDC is contesting for power. Our guest tonight, retired Colonel Dr. Kiiza Besigye, outgoing FDC president. You're most welcome, retired Colonel.
Thank you very much, and a very good evening to all the Radio 1 listeners, wherever you may be listening from.
Dr. Besigye, you have said that you will respect the FDC constitution and step down well ahead of your time decides. Now, three people are asking to replace you. Some people think your party is still young and you should be there a little bit longer to build it. Why are you leaving now?
Well, the question of how long one should stay in office in order to do justice to that office is a matter that is obviously debatable. It's a matter that cannot have one answer. Some people, obviously, as you have just said, think that even 30 years in office is not enough, and they are asking for an extension of
at least 5 years
of Museveni's term. I don't think the idea is 5 years. I think they want until he, falls down dead. So it's a whole spectrum of ideas about how long one should spend in office. But I think our listeners should understand what advises the FDC political agenda. It should be understood that the FDC as a political platform was born onto the political scene from the history of mismanagement of politics, perpetual mismanagement of politics, since independence, where the country has been plunged into turmoil after turmoil. The fact that no leader of this country has ever handed over power peacefully to any other leader, in the entire half a century, no leader, not one leader has ever handed over power peacefully to another. That is the kind of disastrous history that advised the formation, the founding of the FDC platform. We wanted to set a new stage. We wanted to set a new agenda for our country, to set new standards in politics, and therefore to be some kind of an example for the country to look at. And in so doing, we very deliberately made a constitution that provides for a limitation of a period in which one can hold office, especially national offices. And this is for the for two main reasons really. One is that we believed that it was important to have renewal, have leadership, new ideas coming up at periodic times, at regular times, fresh ideas coming in, and any system that continues without any renewal obviously becomes tired. So that was one of the ideas. But the second thing was that we wanted there to be deliberate leadership development within the party. If you are in a party like NRM, where there is no chance of becoming the leader of NRM, why should that party prepare leaders to take over NRM? The most an NRM member can aspire for is maybe to go to parliament, and if he sings the praises hard enough for the leader, hope to be named the minister. That is the entire aspiration of an NRM leader. And therefore, you don't actually develop capacity for people to take on national leadership. In FDC, right from the time, the very first day we launched our constitution and had our first delegates conference in 2005, all members of FDC knew that at the most in 2015 there would be a new leader. Everybody knew right from 2005 that at the most 2015 there would be a new leader. And so people start preparing themselves to assume those responsibilities that will be imposed on them by the party. And the party itself is conscious of that we will have to have a change. And so you are compelled to start preparing and developing leadership to take over. And the disaster of Africa indeed has been that because nobody prepares for an exit of a leader, when it happens, then there is chaos. We are now watching closely to see what is going to happen in
Ethiopia,
in Addis Ababa. But the fact that nobody expected that Zenawi was going to vacate off, in spite of the fact that he had been there for more than 20 years, until he becomes frail and actually
goes to heaven.
Goes without leaving the office to another person. On the other hand, if you see what happened in Ghana, yes, there was a similar unfortunate incident where the president in office passed away. This was a president serving his first term, a term of 4 years, and there you cannot serve more than 8 years. And you saw how smooth it was, because everybody knows the predictability of the political situation. So that is the second important reason why we constitutionalized term limits within our constitution. Of course, the other problem that always is sometimes not paid attention to is, if you are in a government, in our political party, is not a big problem. That's why I mentioned only those two. But if you are in a government where you actually wield political, executive power of the country, where you control armed forces, where you control money of the country, where you control all these things. You have a lot of levers that can make competition against you very difficult. And therefore, if there is no period at which there is not an incumbent competing, it means that you will never have a ground that is leveled for competitors. You have been seeing us in elections. Museveni is moving around in helicopters fueled by me. And by the way, the president never pays taxes. The president is not taxed. So he taxes me and fuels his helicopter and goes around campaigning while I suffer with his bad roads. Getting from one point to another takes me ages. He has all the kinds of motorcades. He moves with a moving platform. Wherever he stops, they just unfold the platforms and so on. We have to, so the taxpayer literally pays for his entire campaign. That kind of situation of unleveled ground is part of the reasons that creates crisis for this country, because you've heard the president saying, why are people complaining? There is an election periodically. I am elected. In fact, he said that when he was referring to people who don't want to leave offices, he only referred to people who don't want to leave office because they don't. His mind because they don't.
The actual statement was different. Humans can change their mind
because they don't hold the elections. Shameful. So we want to create a new agenda. One of the tenets in that endeavor is to have periodic renewal of our leaders, and this is the first. Of course, I'm talking about the term limits of 2 terms, but every 5 years we must have an election of our leaders. And again, I think it is only in FDC that the country witnessed vibrant competition between me and Major General Muntu for the post of party president in 2009, for the flag bearer of the party in 2010, and we campaigned in the whole country and eventually had a transparent election where all the media was, and the winner obviously was declared, and the loser congratulated the winner, and we continued. This is the kind of culture we want to build in our country.
All right.
It's not an easy one.
Yes.
Because of the kind of mess that we are trying to do this in, and all the kinds of distortions and pressures and undermine. Everybody wants to undermine this, of course, because if it succeeds, then it's a danger to the sit-tight dictators, not only here but but all over the continent.
Right.
So it's one exercise in which we must expect a lot of challenges, a lot of attacks and undermining to make sure that it does not succeed.
Well, but you only have 3 people trying to replace in the FDC. Does that give them a wide enough choice?
Well, yes, I think it's a wide enough choice. I mean, 3 leaders. I think it doesn't make sense having 10. If you have 3. And you think, this one, that one is not good, then you have a 3rd one. I think it's a wide enough choice. But more importantly is we advertised in the press everywhere so that everybody knows that the place is vacant, and whoever wants to become a leader of FDC is free to seek that position. So that takes away, for example, people who have been agitating, for us, we are left out. Here you leave yourself out because the whole process is open, is transparent. You can't say, but they are now, like in the Ugandan process, they say, but now there are people only from the east and the west. Everybody had time to make a decision whether you want to offer yourself to give leadership to the party or not. And 3 people offered themselves. If they were 10, we would be happy. The process would still be going on. If it was 1, that so would be it.
Right.
So the most important thing is the transparency, is the openness and fairness of the whole process.
And nobody has said they were left out.
Absolutely, you can't say so, because
it was open. There was an advert in the newspaper.
And not only in the newspapers, I've taken about, it's about 10 months since I said I'm going to stop down.
Right.
And I have been moving around the country and telling people, yes, we are going to have a change.
Right.
Whoever wants should come.
Right.
So nobody can say he did not know that there was a vacancy and that, it was accessible to everybody.
Listeners, this is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. How is the FDC rebranding to be able to provide better leadership? Our guest tonight is retired Colonel Dr. Kiiza Besigye, outgoing FDC president. He will be able to call in and contribute to this discussion. Dr. Besigye, what are the criteria for choosing your replacement?
Well, the criteria is, of course, that the people who are nominated must be qualified to hold the office, and we have very, very simple qualifications. One is that you must be a member of the party, obviously.
So some of us are excluded automatically.
Yes, if you are not a member of the party, obviously, but you can become one, and therefore gain that qualification. And that you should be obviously a citizen of the country, and have no criminal records and things like that. And whoever fulfills those qualifications can be elected. The next hurdle is to convince the delegates. The electorate for the party president is not a universal suffrage for party members. It's a college. It's
an electoral college.
Yes, of the delegates conference. We have delegates from every constituency in Uganda and also from the district. And on top of that, we have the whole of the National Executive Committee, and we have a fairly large executive committee. So that the total of that constitutes the National Delegates Conference, about 1,000 people. And they are the ones who vote, who decide who the party president becomes. And they will do that in November, and whomever they decide, we shall, be happy to receive him.
Who will you vote for on that day?
Who, myself?
Yes.
Well, I have made it very, very clear that I don't intend to endorse any of the candidates. I, of course, have worked closely with all of them for actually a very long time. As senior leaders of the party, I have confidence in all of them, and I do not want to jump into the fray of deciding whom I want to, or influencing, becoming part of the influences on who is chosen. So I think it's only fair that they have a go at influencing the voters, especially from the districts, interacting with the members in the districts, and whoever is chosen, I'll be glad and congratulate them and help them as much as I can to perform their duties.
You're spending 700 million shillings. Who's paying for that?
Ourselves, the party.
Really? 700 million? You have it on the bank account?
We don't, and that's why we have been making appeals to our members and our supporters. Obviously, this is not the first time that we have held a delegates conference. We've already had 3. This is going to be the 4th delegates conference, and we have always met our we have always paid our bills. I think we are possibly one of the few parties that have prudent financial management. We have very clear and again transparent open management systems of finances. We have clear policies on how to raise funds. We have a fundraising committee, national fundraising committee. Districts raise their own funds, and we have accounting procedures which are very clear and written. And possibly we are maybe the only or one of the very few, if there is another, who are up to date in accounting to the
Electoral Commission,
to the registrar of all our funds, whether in elections, the funds that we use in elections, how we get them, and how we spend our funds. We file all our returns right from 2005.
Right.
And the source of our funding is mainly our supporters and our,
locally.
Yes, and our sometimes externally from our members again in the diaspora. We have branches in all the corners of the world, and again from time to time they also make contributions, but the greatest bulk of our funds are domestically
generated,
raised.
Of course, one thing you didn't mention is that you also own your own party headquarters.
Well, we actually don't fully own it yet, but we are nearly
in the process of owning.
Yes. We already own one part of it.
And
it has two sections. We already own entirely one part. The other part we are still paying for it. All our elected leaders contribute to the party also mandatorily.
Right.
They make commitment before getting elected that if they are elected and get payment,
they'll throw something
offices,
back in the
they'll throw something, so that they have also been contributing to the party.
Right. Well, there's another political party whose name I won't mention. They don't have their own premises. They rent. Sometimes they pay rent. When they are delayed, they get into situations. But they also plan to build their own headquarters to join the likes of.
Where you don't have to name them, you know.
This is Spectrum already, and we're going for a break. We'll be right back.
You can pay, you can buy, pay your bills, pay school fees, send cash overseas, pay taxi fees, and salaries, anything you need, anything you need.
You can do anything with MTN Mobile Money. And now, for the first time in Uganda, you can even pay your electricity bills. Go to your MTN Mobile Money menu, select Pay Bills, select Umeme Touch Pay, and follow the prompts.
MTN. Everywhere you go. John, Mike, and I, we go back a bit. We knew John at the beginning, working for someone else. But he was different. He had vision, saw opportunities. He started working towards his goal, opened his own garage, and worked, learning the hard way. His reputation spread. Trust, consistency, quality. Soon people were coming to him from all parts. He made himself and his whole street prosper, and also helped friends, seeing potential in people and helping them on. But John never shouts about all his success. He's just who he is. Special.
So here's to men like John, who make a difference, who enjoy Nile Special, the rich, satisfying taste from the source. Nile Special. You've earned it.
Not for sale to persons under 18.
Spectrum on Radio 1 FM 90.
Welcome back on Spectrum tonight. How is the FDC rebranding to be able to provide better leadership? Our guest tonight, retired Colonel Dr. Kiiza Besigye, outgoing FDC president. You two will be able to contribute to this discussion at some stage. Dr. Besigye, some people think the next leader is basically going to be your shadow. You are a very zealous person, very charismatic and popular. Some people think, he's just going to be a shadow of yourself, and some others think there's going to be a party split between the different candidates' factions.
Well, I doubt that any of those can happen. First of all, it's not possible to see how vibrant others are while, I am holding the office. The only vibrancy they have seen of that office is me. I am the first party president of FDC. And therefore, I think people should wait and see how others perform. You can't judge them before they assume the office. I have always given an example of the stars in the sky. That during the day you don't see the sky, the stars, but they are there in the sky. As soon as it becomes a little dark, they come out. And so I think we have the stars, and if the opportunity arises, as it has, I'm sure they will be seen. And I don't think it is necessary at all anyway to try to say we will all obviously have different leadership styles. We will be different people, but each one will have their strengths and their weaknesses. And I think, as I have said, I have full confidence in the choices that our party has. Secondly, certainly there can be no split. This is something that has been, that was speculated when we had contestations earlier on, which I talked about in 2009, 2010, when I was competing against General Moon. There was a lot of excitement in the media, the FDC is going to be torn apart and so on. And of course, there are people who wished it to be torn apart and who worked for it. As soon as there is some kind of competition, even now, I was telling you that we are doing all this in an environment that is extremely hostile, where we are not dealing with other parties, we are dealing with a hostile state, which uses state organs, state institutions to creep and destroy opposition parties. That's the environment in which we are doing this, where state funds are liberally used to attack legitimate, opposition institutions, where intelligence organizations are not working on how to secure Uganda, but are working on how to secure an illegitimate regime, and how to destroy all those that would offer the country a chance. So there are problems within which we are undertaking this democratization process within our party. And there are many interests out there who would like to see the party destroyed, divided. Even without elections, they are always working on creating a division within the party, divide all of these parties, break them apart. But they have failed both when we are not in elections. They have failed when we are in elections. They are going to fail again. And this is not by accident. It's because of the deliberate arrangements, as I have told you, we have been working on carefully over all these years. The fact that we undertake all our activities transparently, very transparently. So intrigue and all these kinds of manipulations have very little room. We have absolute transparency. Secondly, we have democratic processes, that people can exercise their will. In the last elections, a lot of money also came in our own internal elections, infiltrated, I believe, by those who wanted to cause confusion within the party. But because the elections are, transparent, are democratic, each one casts his vote alone,
There's no camera.
Yes, so you can give out money, but eventually people will go and exercise their judgment privately. So I am not worried at all.
Okay.
And indeed, we have demonstrated already that even if one wins and the other one loses, both can continue working together.
All right.
And so I have no doubt that whether it is Nandala, whether it is Muntu or Ekanya who is elected, the others will rally around him. And if they don't, they will go alone. The party will not go with them. Whoever does not wish to go along with the party will go alone. The party will continue.
Will you stand in 2006? 2016?
Well, that is a question that I have, I've been answering many times over, and I've said two things. One, that nothing precludes me from standing. I don't have to be party president to become a party candidate of FDC for the president. There is no limitation there. Some people have been saying, you have stood 3 times, therefore can you stand again? Standing is not a term. Standing is simply offering to give the party a chance to lead. And as long as the party think that so and so is the best chance for us to win, they will choose that person. So nothing stops the party from selecting me as their flag bearer for any election. And so the only thing that would stop me being a candidate is myself. If I'm selected, I can say no, I don't feel like it this time. And I will make that call
when the time comes.
When the time comes. But secondly, I have said that it is diversionary for this country to start talking about 2016 as if that election means anything. If it is another election to be stolen, if it is another election under the Kigundos in the same way that we have gone through these elections, it will mean almost nothing. So the focus of the country, the focus of Ugandans should not be whether there is an election in 2016 and who is a candidate in 2016. Should be what kind of election is it?
Okay.
Yes. You've seen now every election we have now is like a war itself. It's unbelievable. You find, armored vehicles and
the police are saying with the electoral commission. The electoral commission saying that people are arrested.
Yes, precisely.
As if they belong to different governments.
You have armored vehicles. You have all these, terrible-looking people all over the place. You have tension. You have the IGP warning is now sending commandos and I don't know what, and arresting people.
On the other side.
What kind of is these elections? And later now, indeed, most disastrously having the police arrest the electoral commission.
We're waiting for them to announce. They never announced.
Yeah, so anybody who is diverted to look at 2016 is missing the point.
All right.
The point is that we must challenge the dictatorship now. This is the time to really challenge the dictatorship, either for it to accept, to undertake a transition, a negotiated transition, or for it to be thrown out.
Well,
this is the time.
All right, maybe we'll talk about those details on another occasion. But let's talk about the cabinet reshuffle. You made some statements the other day saying the cabinet really doesn't matter. How can you say such a thing?
Well, I'm sure Ugandans. I say it. This is my personal, opinion. I would like to hear what other Ugandans would feel. Whether they think our country would be worse off if there was no cabinet. If they didn't appoint any cabinet at all, and the ministries continued running without ministers.
Who'd run them? Presidential advisor? What about 80 presidential advisors?
No. The ministries are run by the civil service. They are permanent secretaries and they are civil servants. I doubt that there would be any. In fact, I think the service delivery would improve if there was no single minister in this government. Because, the purpose of ministers is that they are political heads of these ministries for purposes of initiating policy and for purposes of supervising its implementation.
Right.
But these ministers do neither.
What do they do? We see them in the big vehicles in town.
Yes. They obviously, I think, have some places where they sit during the day, called their offices.
In the evening, they fly over potholes and go.
Yes, they have huge vehicles which they said are necessary to ride over bad roads. They collect a lot of money. They cut deals.
Do they do that?
Oh yes, as you have seen, some are even in court while they are being reappointed. So I think this and all that happens because the system of government we have is really a one-man rule.
Oh,
absolutely, it is a one-man rule. So nothing will happen, whether it is policy, whether it is implementation, whether it is what, without the almighty of government nodding to say yes. And that's why there is paralysis in the whole country. Because
what do you mean there's paralysis?
I mean, things
can have by-elections which the opposition wins all the time.
Oh, yes.
We don't know why.
Oh yes. But what I'm saying is, you don't know how many things can are stuck because the president has not seen or dealt with it, and yet there are all these ministers sitting there and so on. And when even a minister has been told to do something and is busy trying to do it, then the president maybe has forgotten that he asked him to do that. He has changed his mind and is saying, now stop there, go this way.
All right.
So this is it's just a farce. So this is why I was saying it doesn't matter whether you have a cabinet. It doesn't matter whether the cabinet members come from any particular denomination or from region. They are all useless,
Let's hear from the listeners. This is Spectrum on Radio 1 tonight. How is the FDC rebranding to be able to provide better leadership? Our guest is retired Colonel Dr. Kiiza Besigye, outgoing FDC president. Spectrum, hello? Hello? Yes?
I salute you in the name of Almighty God.
Your name, sir?
And I salute you in Dr. Kiiza Besigye.
Your name?
This is none other than the former MD Professor Campaign North. Dr. Kiiza Besigye.
Spectrum, hello? Well, I read out the number 0414-348-111, 0312-260-390, 0312-261-390. Spectrum, hello?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, your name?
I'm Godfrey calling from Mutuanga.
Godfrey, go on. Spectrum, hello?
Yes, Edmond.
Yes, sir, your name?
Good evening to you.
Good evening, your name, sir?
Kapanga Christopher calling from the I salute Colonel Besigye.
Spectrum, hello?
To win the Max.
Yes, Max. Tomorrow you're live on Spectrum. Your name? Please tell us what you would like to tell us tonight. Max, don't be bashful. Do talk to us, my friend. Spectrum, hello?
Hello, I'm Michael from
Michael, yes? Spectrum, hello?
Edmond, thank you for the program. I'm Hussein calling in Busoga, Pastoral Walker District.
Yes, Hussein.
I didn't get the question.
Okay, we missed him there. Spectrum, hello?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, your name?
Richard from Kiiza.
Yes, Richard.
Okay.
Spectrum, hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir, your name?
Yes, this is Sheikh from Italy.
Yes. We lost your final caller. Spectrum, hello?
Alex in Bali.
Yes, Alex in Bali. Okay, let's get back to the studio. Yes, sir, your name?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, your name?
My name is Makoro Kafuma.
Yes.
I think the question is
let's get back to the studio right now.
I'd like to thank all those who have phoned in to make comments or to ask questions. My brother from Kawempe, nothing stops me from being a flag bearer in the next election. Absolutely nothing stops me from being a candidate in the next election. Godfrey, FDC is a political party. A4C or Activists for Change and or 4GC for God and My Country are political pressure groups. And the difference between the two is that A4C and 4GC are not based on parties. They are based on an objective of liberation of our country from dictatorship. And therefore, whether you are DP, whether you are NRM, whether you are UPC or whatever, the idea is to work together and become active in liberating yourself. That is A4C, 4GC. FDC is a political party that prepares itself to offer leadership when there is a good political dispensation in the country. Christopher, mysterious deaths, especially of Muslim leaders. This is, of course, extremely disturbing, and I agree with you. It's a shame that instead of the police concentrating on preventing those deaths to start with, but if they happen, concentrating on investigating them and bringing the culprits to justice and informing the country that, you know, this is what we have done and these are the criminals, and we have not only arrested them but successfully prosecuted them and sent them to the gallows or to jail. Instead of doing that, they are busy, you know, doing things, you know, running after all kinds of shadows. The other day I was reading in the newspapers that they had deployed all over Nachivubo, where that they suspected I was intending to go there. You know, so they are busy in all these kinds of things.
But sometimes you go to eat food in those restaurants.
Precisely, and there is no reason why I shouldn't. And it's not a crisis if I do. But instead of focusing on how to secure the country. This is what I was telling you. Their preoccupation is how to secure the criminal regime in office.
That's a very strong word. Anyway, go on.
It is. The Michael Anne Mugisha. Anne Mugisha applied for a job in the UN, and I was a referee for her. She asked me to offer to recommend her, and I wrote a letter expressing what I know of her and her ability to do the job she was applying for. She did an interview and was the best, and she was given an appointment. When that happened, the government learned of it and sent an objection that Anne cannot be appointed because it was to become some kind of a spokesperson of the UN on Somalia. That because we, the opposition, have been opposing the Somalia mission, this is an FDC person, cannot be allowed to do that job. And so they said, we will not allow, we will protest the appointment of Anne Mugisha. And what the UN advised Anne Mugisha to do, and which she did, was to write to the president of Uganda to say that she is being appointed to that job on the terms of the UN, which do not allow her to be partisan or to participate in politics, and that for the time she will be doing that job, she will not be undertaking active politics. And that's what she did. She did not obviously become a member of NRM or join the NRM. It is not NRM which got the job for her. NRM was simply trying to stop her from taking on the job she had meritoriously been given. My friend from Luka, I didn't get your question well, but if you were saying that people join NRM to share the cake, yes, obviously, that's, I have no doubt that most people who are in NRM, especially the leaders, are there mainly to unfairly, it's not a fair sharing of the cake, to unfairly use public resources on themselves, while there are no medicines in the hospitals, while the roads are finished, while teachers cannot be paid, while, all other problems are there. Yes, a few people are sharing the cake, and that is unfortunate.
Right.
I think the majority of Ugandans should make sure that we have a system that shares the cake amongst Ugandans, not amongst its leaders.
Right.
Alternative policies of FDC, anybody who cares obviously to follow what FDC is all about will know that we have always provided alternatives in every sector. Whether it's in agriculture, we have a complete alternative on agriculture, and people listen to us. The reason we defeated NRM in Kasese was precisely that. We have been advocating for irrigation, we have been advocating for railway construction in the development of infrastructure. NRM came into government when one could put maize on the train from Kasese all the way to Mombasa. Now it's just a jungle where a train used to pass. We have clear alternatives in education. We proposed the other time that students in university should get university student loans. Museveni did not have it in his manifesto. He quickly said he was also going to provide the same. Up to date, students are languishing. They cannot complete their university education. We always provide alternatives. And of course, you know that even such things as graduated tax were removed because of our alternative agenda, and many other things.
So you actually have an alternative policy.
Absolutely. But the point I have been making over and over again is that the contest now is not of alternatives. Even if you have the best alternative, it will never see the light of day.
All right.
Under the kind of elections that we have.
Right.
That's why the country must first liberate itself from this military dictatorship.
Okay.
Then parties can compete on the basis of alternatives.
All right, we have to go to Dr. Besigye, but maybe before we go, let's talk about the Somalia crisis. At the time cuts us short. After the crash of the 3 helicopters, Saleh was appointed to head a commission of inquiry, but it is said that you were chief of logistics and engineering in the UPDF at the time, that you actually bought these choppers. Why did you buy such choppers?
Well, anybody who has followed the story of those choppers will know that there was the 17th commission which investigated the junk helicopters.
Yes.
And in the report of the Safety India Commission, there is a large report, I'm sure it is there in Parliament for those who want to read it. You'll find my letter and my report on the helicopters,
yes,
and how they were being bought. The buying of those helicopters started with Museveni ordering that helicopters should be bought from a company that is, at the time we didn't know, that was eventually owned by Emmanuel Kato.
We have to go.
Yeah. So
it's not your fault.
And it's unfortunate that you brought that, but I think the Ugandans really are entitled to know that these junk helicopters are the handwork of no other person other than Mr. Museveni.
We have to go. Thank you very much, guys. Retired Colonel Dr. Kiiza Besigye, outgoing FDC president. Thank you for tuning in. I've been your host, Edmond. Kizito Spectrum. We'll be back tomorrow. Up next is the news.
Thank you very much and good night.